Yes.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Making It in Austria. I'm your host, Adela. And on this beautiful Friday, it's actually a very warm and nice Friday, I have a pleasure to welcome Manuel Mofidian to our interview. Manuel, welcome.
Hi, Adela. Good morning. It's a nice weather in my office too. I'm sitting in Vienna, right?
Yes, I'm in Vienna too. Exactly.
Yeah, the same weather.
Yeah. So thank you for taking the time, Manuel, for sharing a bit of your story and your journey in Austria, even though you're born in Austria, right? Born and raised in Austria. And we always do like to have a bit of specials and also kind of special episodes in a way that we have also locals. We used to have had some of the locals that have shared their own story, because it's quite important to, to learn from one another and, try to diversity and diversify your opinions and ways of thinking. And I have some Austrians who said, wow, this is cool because how you guys managed to do it, and I cannot, even though I'm born here, I have the family, I have the schools here, universities, languages, support network, and then someone from outside of the world comes in and makes a great success. So it's a way of learning and supporting one another. But before that, Manuel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, first, many thanks for the invitation, and also many thanks to my people that came before me. I know Laura, who was in your podcast, and also Magdalena, who I think was in the last episode. Yes. I know Magdalena for, I think, 15 years. When I watched her podcast, I could remember some steps in her life. So my greetings go out. And yeah, many thanks that I can be with you. About my upbringing, I was born in Austria, but I'm very, as I told you before we started, very mixed guy, I would say. So my roots are very international. Both of my parents came to Austria in the 60s and 70s to study here. My father is from Iran, and my mother is half German, half Serbian. So I have a Serbian grandfather and a German grandmother. And both of my parents did not plan to stay in Vienna or in Austria, but they came here to study and then to go back to their countries. But in the meantime, in Iran, you had a revolution that was not really in the, let's say, fitting to my father's mind, because the revolution went into a direction that was not being corresponding to my father's beliefs. And my mother fell in love with my father, and then they stayed in Austria, and that's how I was born in Steiermark in Styria, and started my life in Austria. And as a child, then when we moved to Vienna, and so I feel like a real Viennese guy, having very international background. And like I told you in our call, I always say I never had the possibility to be a nationalist. Because if with 7 years you go to Serbia and in the streets you hear one story, you come back to Austria, hear another story, hear stories from Iranians, how they got screwed over the years, and everybody's wrong, but they are not. You understand that there are several, let's say, possibilities how things went up, and that humans in the end can be good or bad. And so that's still my philosophy until now.
Yeah. I'm so my husband and I, we are both born and raised in Bosnia and Herzegovina. We both, studied over there, and then about 10 years ago we moved to Austria. So it's also, we are here and there. When I go back, I am not really, Bosnian. I mean, friends joke like, "Oh my God, you're turning into an Austrian."
Yeah.
Women, especially, like, what's with the makeup? So no, you cannot imagine without going out or having going to the office without full-blown makeup. Like there's no tomorrow. So I come there without just normal jeans, t-shirt, and it's like, oh, let's go for a coffee, and it's like, oh my God. One thing. The second thing is like, oh, you want to schedule something? Oh my, that's so Austrian, or not even Austrian. They usually, so perception from Bosnia when I was growing up was, everything is Germany, like Schwabo.
Yeah.
So it's like not even Austria. So like not making a difference over there. They're like, can we schedule a lunch? And they're like, oh my God, you want to schedule a lunch? So you don't do that. You just drop by and just give a call. I'm here, let's have a lunch. And then people come and have a lunch.
Yeah.
And when I'm here, so I'm also asked, so where do you come from, or when did you move to Austria, and why did you move, and where did you learn the language, and how was it for you? So it's I take it I can personally, and in our family I can take it lightly, because we didn't have much, like those are like nice things to share, right? So I personally didn't have and have some like been discriminated on a certain level. So and it's a different country where I come from than some other parts of the world. So and I'm white at the end of the day. It's very different. So I can talk about these things lightly, but I'm sure there are people who don't feel lightly about these things and don't feel being asked for the 55th time, where do you come from, even though you're born here, and how's your language, and so on. So there's a big discussion if you follow on social media about that. But yeah, I can say for me it was a smooth, I would say, smooth transition from Bosnia to Austria, and it felt like, okay, I feel good here. So we felt we were welcomed, and we were as well open to we wanted to move. So that's very different. So we wanted to move. We wanted to come here to grow, to learn the language, to try to find a job here. And we were welcomed really by the all the people that I worked with in my first company, and also especially by Bosnians, men and women who moved here recently or during the wartime. So they were like, oh, great, so let me help you out with this and that. So yeah, this YouTube channel is kind of a way giving back to all the people that have supported along the way.
Very cool. It seems that way. And I think over the years you find yourself. When I was in my teen years, I asked myself, who and what am I? And I was between the chairs, and you get different feedback from everybody. But in my case, it was like that. When I grew up, let's say, I saw it as a treasure, and nowadays I feel like union of everything that my family produced before my birth. So I think can be a big advantage. And Vienna is a city where people from several countries, where they also have maybe a past where they had problems with each other, have a great possibility to reconnect to each other, and that's basically.
Absolutely. It's a great place to live. And I'm often asked when I go back to Bosnia, so what is about Vienna that it gets to be ranked the best living city year after year? So when I was asked that recently by my dentist in Sarajevo. Yeah, I'm one of those people that go to the dentist back in their home countries, because I have a great relationship and great trust with my dentist for 15, 20 years. And I said, well, I don't know. It's not an easy question to answer, because we are already in, right? So I'm here for already 10 years, and then everything works. That's the thing. So when you start from the basics, I go out and I take a bus, and I have this yearly ticket, and I want to go by tram, or I want to work from home, or I want to do this and that, or I want to travel to Bratislava over the weekend. I don't know. There's so many things. I want to go in the park for the afternoon. It's like a lot of opportunities, a lot of possibilities. So it's hard to choose one.
If you want to get into the bus in Austria, it really stays and you can get into it. It's not while it drives that you get out or in. It's a big difference to the Balkans.
Yeah, I've been chasing the bus. That there's this saying in our country. So I don't know if it's Serbia, but in Bosnia, there's like, don't run after the bus or tram or things. And recently I was running after the bus here, and then I had nice neighbors who were like pressing the button on the door so that the driver waits for me. Yeah. So Manuel, what do you do as a professional? So we said that you're a lawyer specialized in the IT and SaaS services, software as a service contracts. How did you find yourself in law?
I'm an attorney in Vienna. So after finishing my law studies, I also did the education route that you need to be an advocate, an attorney. And why did I study law in the first place? When I finished school, I was not sure what to do. I had several ideas. I was thinking about economics, or about maybe also political science, or also of becoming a teacher for history and sports. But then I had a cousin who was 1 year older than me, Manuel Mofidian. He's my Iranian cousin. He's full Iranian, and he already studied law. And the time when I had to do my military service, civil service, I picked him up from university. I think this was around 2007, something like that, 2008 maybe. And he was in his first semester, and he had a test, like one of his exams, and this was a very cool case. Yeah, and he showed it to me. I really picked him up from Juridicum, from university, and I was like, "Yeah, do you have? Is this rare that you have tests as cases?" And he said, "No, no. Most of the times, our tests are cases." And he showed it to me, and I just found it very cool and interesting that you had to solve it like a riddle, and this was one of the reasons where I was really thinking about maybe choosing law, because also law back at the time seemed to me like a very open study where you have a lot of possibilities. That's what people said. If you ask me nowadays, I have a, let's say, very global view nowadays. I would say there are a lot of other studies which are so much more open, but back then I did not know, and also not sad about the choice. But this was also one of the criteria that I considered. And so this combination of seeing my cousin study law and having cool cases to solve, and also to have the idea to not have to decide too early what to do, to maybe work for an NGO or going to international law for working for the state maybe, or going into a company, or becoming an attorney as I am today, was those were my first interesting criteria. And when I started to study law, I immediately saw that it's very fitting to my interests and also to my skills, because I was not the best pupil. I also did not concentrate much in school. My mother was always complaining that I should do my homework. But once I went to university, things became very light for me, which is unnatural, I would say. Most of law students have, and rightly so, a hard time to finish law, especially in Vienna. I can really tell, because I have one of my good friends from university, Svetlana, and she's from Bosnia, and other people came to Austria to study law, or Magdalena, and where all of them were very bright and skillful, and people that worked a lot. But in the first years, they had their hard times, because you have this prerequisite to understand German very well. And it's really one of the harder faculties in Europe, you would say, the Juridicum Wien. In comparison to a lot of other countries where you study law, it's a huge university. We had 11,000 students, and it's a little bit like a mass, I would say, a company, a huge a blue chip company that tries to educate you with good education, but little attention for people. But in my case, it was really whereas in school I had my problems to be motivated and do the stuff. Once I went to the university, I really thought like, okay, law, that's for me. I can understand a certain view on how the world works. I was never thought that's all it, but still, historically, from a constitutional side, but also how contracts work. And yeah, that's how it went. And I never looked back, I would say. And I'm not sure if I could do so many other things. Over the last 10 years, I fell in love, if you would like to, in software. So I still cannot do anything at home. If something gets broken, my father's an engineer, you have to know, but software-wise, I'm pretty good. And besides software law, I also do corporate law. That was also maybe my big love in university, where I had the feeling corporate law, that somehow like mathematics, where you calculate portions of companies and shares. And nowadays, those are the two things I do. It's a business law on the one side and IT law, and I'm very happy with it. Although the industry is very much changing, and also my job, I think, is changing. But some years ago, I tried to be always the first to adapt to changes. So I'm looking pretty positive into the future, and I like the present. So.
Manuel, one of the perceptions of law studies is you have to memorize all it by heart. Is that true? And how did you do it? Because you have to apply it. So one thing is when you study, I have studied also a lot of things at the electrical engineering studies, but I then continued applying certain things, not all of them. But I have the feeling with law that you have to, you know, not just learn it by heart and leave it in the room, but really then later on bring it out. And in all this negotiation that I was mentioning you before, you don't look at the, oh, let me just find my script. Okay, yeah, the 3.4. So they just get, they just get the numbers and the laws and sections and clauses out. So how do you do that?
Yeah, I think you would distinguish between law education and the legal practice as of right now. I was a guest of a big legal podcast, let's say 1.5 years ago, where Alma Zadic came after me, which was an honor because she's a great Ministry of Justice. And back then I was asked what I would change in legal education, and I said, I think the stupid part of legal education is that you first have to memorize stuff to then apply it. When I was studying, people always asked me basically, but is it not just memorizing things? It's not what you asked. Your question is so much more sophisticated. And then I always said, legal studies is in a way interesting. First, you have to memorize everything, and then when you go to the test, you also have to apply it. Most people, and more problems for a lot of people are lying in the applying part. The memorizing part is very hard, and you have to go through it. But in the test, it's about applying things that you have memorized. That's the legal education. In legal practice, I would say it's a little bit different, though it seems you have another impression in your professional environment. I would say once you get into work and you've memorized all the stuff and tried to apply it, it's about the tools that you learn, the techniques. And in my opinion, I always say for a lawyer, I'm working more like a natural scientist. I work with theses that I test and falsify. And of course, things I repeat and I do a lot, like founding companies or software as a service contract. Or nowadays, I do a lot of stuff in AI law, which I call AI law, which is the AI Act, but also intellectual property law and related topics. You repeat it and then you know your ropes, but in the end, if you have a special question, all of us, we look into the books or look into the commentaries and try to get a grasp of it. So in reality, law is a technique, for me, is using tools to come to a conclusion. And of course, when lawyers sit in front of each other in negotiations, they've prepared those contracts just some days ago and basically have eaten them. So of course, sometimes they know the references and the sections, but it's probably the same with you when you in your job work with something in the days before that, then you also don't have to look at everything. So maybe some lawyers are a little bit more sophisticated in memorizing because they had it during their studies, but in the end, it's not so simple, so different, in my opinion, from other disciplines.
That's a good point, Manuel. Thanks for picking that one up. So you're saying that the laws, books law, so let's say that book, so it's expanding, so right, so it's expanding, and now with the AI, so what do you see, or what? I'm not going to ask if you fear, because that's long. Do you, which part? So, but nowadays I'm starting to use some of the tools, right? Some of the tools, but mostly on the presentational side, on crafting, on a communication skills, presentation skills, and so on, because that's a major part of my work that I do in the business development. So I'm trying to make use of it, but I have not gone into that hole, and figuring out, okay, what is this thing to do to my job in the next, 3 to 5 years. I've recently seen some of the, videos saying like AI sales agent, basically picking up the whole call. So like kind of a call center, so doing the whole conversation with you, like you say, I'm Manuel, and then it just picks your name and walks you through. We don't have much time to discuss it. It's a nice topic, but what do you see, or what do you see in the next, let's say, this year, in the 3 years, 5 years horizon?
I see constant change. I assume this also in my job. I think things changed already a lot if you compare the year 2024 to 20 years ago. You had to go to lawyers for every legal question. People, some were specialized, some were not. But let's say I mean, that this time I was in school, but we lawyers had our books and had our knowledge. And this was passed from generation to generation. Nowadays, if you are honest, you can already get a good grasp of a lot of legal questions if you Google it, yeah? Or if you go to websites that have information. So I have the feeling, if you ask myself, I mean, I have a lot of or enough work to live very good, but I have the feeling that lawyers are getting less consultated, or at a later stage. Some clients of mine, or pre-clients, or people that will become clients, already sent me drafts of contracts and just want me to look over it.
Okay.
In reality, not always the best, because then you start from the wrong scratch sometimes. But we already had some kind of revolution in legal services. And in my field and also in other fields, I think we will have agents, and we will have support coming from software tools that will probably lessen the need for legal expertise. But on the other hand, I think in our industry, and also in other industries, this will probably open possibilities to make a business in other fields, or to make more business. But I think we will have a lot of changes. And I'm teaching at the Technical University of Vienna. Have last semester my first seminar called Experimental AI, and there we worked with 35 students, and let them create stuff with AI, and it's unbelievable, right? And though I wrote articles and was publicizing about blockchain and crypto, and was interested in this because I'm a tech lawyer and still in this bubble. Also back at the time, I did not think there was such a huge impact in comparison to software working with machine learning and deep learning. This is unbelievable, and the developments are you cannot imagine, right? So I always say to my employees, I'm not sure if in 10 years we're at a top-notch law firm because we adapted as one of the first, or if we all chill on an island. I'm looking forward to the answer.
That's an on that note, Manuel. It's all the time that we have for today. So there's a lot of other things that we could talk about. But thank you so much. So it's a bright future, depending from the angle that you look at. But what's for sure is, and is it Benjamin Franklin who said it, that change is the only constant. So
yes.
We live to see it in all areas. We don't know how it's going to hit us, but it's definitely there. So it is what it is. So it's just not.
Definitely. It makes no sense. I always say at some of the events that we attend or organize, it's important that we talk about it. It's important that people are in a discussion with each other. How much do we want it? What do we want? Because some people will do it, and maybe let's tackle it from the front, right?
Yeah. Let's not be the last one joining to the table. Manuel, thank you so much for your time today. It was a pleasure. I'm really looking forward to meet you soon, anytime soon in person.
Let's it was very, very nice talk now and behind the camera. So
perfect. So I will link all your LinkedIn comments or contacts in the commenting section. I will have people to get in touch with you. So there will be the ways. And for all of you that listen today, so thank you so much for spending this half an hour with us. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, and I'm sure Manuel will his inbox is be full with some nice comments and questions. So thank you so much. Please do subscribe to the channel so that it allows us that these great stories travel. And I'm looking forward to the next interview coming to you very soon. Thank you so much. Have a great day.